You know about your wife's affair with the neighbor, John, but you choose to endure it because your size can't satisfy her desires. Even though you're a middle manager making $300,000 a year, you can't stop this absurd situation because John is wealthier than you, even though in every other way he's smaller than you. You look at the messy bed, imagining the scenes from last night. While you were stuck at overtime, every frame twists a knife in your nerves. Why, despite all your hard work, are you still not measuring up? Why, despite trying every financial strategy, does your wealth refuse to grow? I'll tell you, you've been thinking about it all wrong. You're a fake rich person. That's right, you're a phony millionaire. You think a few $100,000 in salary makes you wealthy. You even plan to use that money to make your wife tolerate your inadequacies. Here's the truth, look at your account balance. Is this what $300,000 a year leaves you with? Every payday, mortgage, car loan, student loan, living expenses. What doesn't take a chunk out of your paycheck? You're trapped in the illusion of growing wealth, and now, desperate to win your wife back. You start listening to financial advisors, trying to change things. You open your laptop, try to sell a skill for $15 an hour, and after a few weeks the exhaustion wins. You quit, not because you're lazy, because the math was broken from the start. Trading more hours for slightly more dollars isn't building wealth, it's just running on two treadmills instead of one. The real question isn't whether you have good habits. It's whether your habits are aimed at the right target. Because effort pointed in the wrong direction doesn't just waste your time. It steals years you can't get back. Years where your money could have been working in ways you were never taught. Before you add another income stream or download another budgeting app, ask yourself something honest. When was the last time any of that advice worked? Did it actually change your financial position, not just your feelings about it, but the actual number in your bank account? Here is the thing nobody wants to sit down and calculate. Take a person earning a standard salary. Let's say $50,000 a year after taxes. Sounds reasonable. Now subtract rent or mortgage, somewhere around $15,000 to $18,000 annually if you're lucky. Subtract groceries, utilities, transportation, and insurance. You're looking at maybe $9,000 to $12,000 of breathing room for the year. That's roughly $700 to $1,000 a month that you actually get to decide what to do with. That's your entire margin for building wealth, handling emergencies, and having a life. Now watch what happens inside that margin. You walk into a store 3 times a week and grab something small. Coffee on the way to work, a pair of sneakers you didn't need, because the ones on your feet still work fine. A quick lunch because meal prepping felt like too much effort on Sunday. $30 here, $50 there. Nothing that feels dangerous in the moment. But run those numbers across 12 months. And you've quietly bled through $3,000 to $5,000, sometimes more. That's half your margin, gone, not invested, not compounding. Just evaporated into things you can't even remember buying. And here's where the math gets truly cruel. If you took even half of that leaked money, say $2,000 a year, and dropped it into a basic index fund averaging 7% annually, in 20 years that pile turns into roughly $87,000. In 30 years, over $200,000. You didn't need a raise, you didn't need a side hustle. You just needed to stop the bleeding in aisle 7 of the grocery store. But most people never see this number, because they're too busy doing something far more expensive than impulse shopping. They're beating themselves up, they look at their bank balance, feel the shame hit. And instead of opening a spreadsheet, they open Netflix. The anxiety becomes a fog, the fog becomes avoidance. And avoidance is the most expensive habit you will ever carry, because every month you spend paralyzed by guilt is another month that $2,000 sits in a checking account earning exactly nothing, while inflation quietly eats it alive. Study after study shows that financially literate households accumulate roughly 3 times more wealth over a lifetime than households that aren't. Not because they earn more, because they lose less. They understand what a fee structure is doing to their retirement account. They know the difference between a debt that builds equity and a debt that just builds someone else's revenue. This isn't genius-level knowledge. Most of it is a few hours of reading, the kind of thing you could knock out in a weekend. Instead of binging a series you'll forget by Tuesday, so the math is sitting right there, plain and uncomfortable. Your margin is already razor thin. The leaks are small enough to ignore, and large enough to destroy decades of potential growth. And the one free tool that could change everything, basic financial literacy, is gathering dust because it feels intimidating when really it's just unfamiliar. Here is the uncomfortable part that nobody frames correctly. You could do every single thing on the responsible money checklist. Cut the impulse purchases, pay your loans on time, build that emergency fund, stick to a savings plan like it's oxygen, and still end up exactly where you started. Not because the advice is wrong, because the advice is incomplete. It's designed to keep you solvent, not to make you wealthy. And there is a canyon between those two things. Think about what debt management actually looks like from the other side of the table. You make your payment on time, good. You avoid the late fee, great. But the institution that lent you that money is collecting interest on thousands of accounts just like yours, every single month. Whether you pay early or late, your discipline is their revenue model. You are not escaping the system by managing your debt efficiently. You are being a well-behaved participant inside it. The person who owns the lending platform sleeps fine either way. The person making the payment is the one losing sleep over whether the autopay clears before midnight. Now zoom out further. Somebody told you avoiding debt entirely is the real power move. Save up for the car, save up for the house. Don't borrow what you can't pay back easily. Sounds clean, sounds responsible. But while you spend 7 years saving for a down payment, the person who already owns property is watching that asset appreciate in value. Month after month, without lifting a finger, your savings account earns you a fraction of a percent. Their rental property earns them your rent check. You are funding someone else's wealth-building machine with the exact money you were told to set aside responsibly. This is the layer most financial advice never peels back. It talks endlessly about spending less and saving more, but it almost never asks the only question that actually matters. Do you own anything that makes money while you are not working? Because if the answer is no, every dollar you earn passes through your hands, gets taxed, gets spent on survival, and whatever crumbs remain go into a savings account that barely keeps pace with inflation. You aren't building wealth, you're maintaining a position. You're treading water and calling it swimming. The savings plan, the emergency fund, the debt repayment schedule, all of it is necessary, but necessary is not sufficient. These are defensive moves. They keep you from drowning. They do not get you to shore. The people who actually get richer are the ones who figured out early or late that the game is about ownership. Own equity in a business. Own a piece of property. Own something that generates cash flow independent of your time and your body showing up somewhere from 9 to 5. So here is your single mechanical motion. Open a second savings account today. Not tomorrow, not this weekend, today. Set a recurring transfer for whatever amount makes you feel nothing. $10, $20, the number does not matter. What matters is that the transfer exists and you never manually approve it. You are not building a fortune with this. You are breaking the pattern of reacting to money instead of directing it. The same principle applies to every other financial habit that actually moves the needle. Investing in yourself is 30 minutes on a free online course. While your coffee cools down, it's reading one chapter of a book about a skill adjacent to your current job. Not because you love learning, but because that one extra qualification on your resume is the difference between being considered and being overlooked. The promotion, the freelance client, the side income, none of that starts with ambition. It starts with a Tuesday evening where you chose a tutorial over a third episode of something you have already half forgotten. Now your credit, pull up your last 3 credit card statements right now. Not to judge yourself, just to look. Most people have no idea what their actual monthly outflow is because they never sit with the number. That ignorance is not bliss, it is a slow leak. One rule can plug it immediately. If you can't buy it twice in cash, you can't afford it once on credit. Write that on a sticky note and put it on your wallet. Boring, ugly, effective. None of it will make you rich by Thursday. Not a single habit on this planet comes with a receipt that says wealth guaranteed. And if someone promises you that, they are selling you a fantasy, stitched together with screenshots of rented cars. What you are building is a buffer, a few $100s between you and a crisis. A skill that earns on the side so one job loss doesn't erase everything. A circle of people who talk about money without flinching. Not because they are rich, but because they stop pretending the subject doesn't exist. That is what compound growth actually looks like in real life. It is not a hockey stick chart. It's the slow, boring distance between you and the edge of the cliff, getting a little wider each month. If any of this felt like too much, pick one thing, the smallest, most embarrassingly simple action you heard today. Maybe it is opening that savings account. Maybe it's texting someone who actually talks about money like an adult and asking them to grab coffee. Maybe it's just looking at your subscriptions tonight and canceling the one you forgot existed. That is enough. That is the whole starting line. You don't owe this video a complete life transformation. You owe yourself one honest move this week. Now I am curious, what is the one habit you've already been doing quietly that you think most people overlook? Drop it in the comments, because the most useful advice in this whole conversation might not come from me, it might come from someone down there who figured out something small that changed everything.